We are live.
Hello, everyone. Thanks for tuning in. And we got a fun video in the spirit of Halloween. I've been wanting to do this video for a long time, and no better time than a couple nights before Halloween. So, for those just tuning in, this is going to be our top 13 favorite horror movies. Before we go into the criteria, let me introduce the panel. Below me, we got Sean. Sean, how's it going tonight?
What's going on, Mike? Thanks for having me.
Thanks for coming on. And then we also have first time on the channel, Adam. Adam, thank you for joining us, and I'm looking forward to this tonight.
Thanks for having me, man. Always remember your first.
Sweet. So before we go into the top 13, I figured we'd go over criteria, what went into each of our processes for coming up with this daunting task. For me, a lot of things go into this. Horror is subjective, like a lot of different movies, with comedy and interests. So you have a lot of leeway to kind of come up with your own personal. So for me, I look at originality. I look at awesome, memorable endings. I'm a sucker for awesome creature designs, character designs. So icons, if you will. That goes into my thought process. Rewatchability. I'll probably think of more along the way, but those are just some of the main criteria that I use when putting this list together. Sean, how about you?
Yeah, so I went for really movies that stuck in your head or that stick in your head. Sort of a lot of those sort of scenes that you either are quotable or scenes that you can really talk through and talk with others, and they're like, oh yeah, I remember that scene. Definitely go towards, as you say, monster like a design. I trend towards, and it's no spoiler, but I trend towards more like jump scare, supernatural type of stuff. Really looking around when the lights are off, being like, oh shit, what's going on? Type of thing. So that's where my list sort of went through.
Cool. How about you, Adam?
So when these sort of best of or favorite topics come up, like I get a kick out of them, so it's always fun to dive in on. But you guys do Letterboxd at all? I'm sure, Mike, you had mentioned you're right. So yeah, so when you're trying to like decide what your personal rating is for a movie, right? I think the only real barometer is how much did you enjoy it. Right. So how much did you personally enjoy the film? So like while I did take into consideration what makes an, excellent film or what have you, right? Like I also like a lot of trash. So for the spirit of this list, I tried to steer clear from things like Zombievers and like real junk because I love real junk. Like left my own devices, I will often watch the junkiest of junk. So I sort of removed that stripe from this list to sort of honor the spirit of essential horror movies, right? So for me, it was just that the throughway stripe is how much I personally enjoyed it, and then the ancillary factors are like, is this a quintessential horror film? How does this stand up to the horror category? Watchability, impact. So while I did want those like critical elements involved, I wasn't necessarily picking Citizen Kane for Citizen Kane's sake, So
Gotcha. And going over this, I'm the only one who knows the complete list, and it was funny going through it because both you guys are in like the completely opposite direction, and I'm somewhere like right in the middle.
Yeah.
So it was funny, and a lot of similarities. Too, there's no one film that is on all three lists.
Which blows my mind.
I thought there'd be one, and so close to some of them.
Several. Like I think when, like I couldn't, like I was like, what am I getting myself into with these two? Where we don't have one movie on the list. It's crazy. All right, but anyway,
I forget. Did you say if there was one franchise on all three lists?
So yes, there is, not including honorable mentions. We are going to have talk about those towards the end too. But there is one franchise
Which I
that
think I
is,
know what it is because
I have a guess. I have a guess as well. But I think Sean's wrong.
Sean. If it's the guess you texted me, it's not that one.
I
Yeah.
would have thought it was because we watched that at your house, Adam. Remember?
Yeah, I don't consider it. I don't consider that one quintessential horror.
Oh man, you're not gonna like mine.
I can't wait till we talk about that. But there's there's multiple that are represented twice by
Yeah.
but so that's gonna be fun to create those conversations. Quick shout out to the chat. CT Jaskin, thanks for tuning in. That guy. Chin, appreciate it, especially with your second comment there. Thanks for tuning in. And
yes.
I don't
Chinmo is not a horror guy, Adam. He gets
he isn't?
scared. Yeah.
He's afraid of food in horror movies.
Yeah. Ouch.
I don't, Mike. I don't know Chinmo that well, although we are becoming fast friends. But the little bits of information I've gleaned from his peers is that he only eats chicken fingers, and is apparently afraid of horror movies now. So those are two fun facts.
and probably the biggest Turtles and Star Wars fan that I know.
Yes.
We're building the image of Chin for you. But without any further ado, let me hopefully this works. I doing my best.
Forget what my list was, so this is gonna be fun.
Let's see, can I go full screen and still do perfect? Awesome. So starting with 13, I went with Night of the Living Dead. Classic movie, George Romero. And when I think zombies, this is my favorite. And it started the whole zombie craze in film. And Romero's trilogy is one of the best in horror franchises. And
Mike, is it too early for a confession?
I was gonna say some more, but it's never.
No,
yeah.
no, I'll let you. I want you to say more, but I feel I have to get this off my chest. You may have just highlighted an oversight for me.
Really?
So, well done, and certainly it would materialize in it at the very least honorable mention. So, not to cut you off,
Oh no,
that's an excellent pick, and I feel that I might have missed one. So, well done.
So, and it was funny 'cause going over your list, I was like, he's got no Night of the Living Dead. I wonder if there's.
I know I might have missed one.
But it's funny because I listen to a ton of horror podcasts, and I think it was Talk Some Horror was the name of it. They no longer put out content to my knowledge, but the first I ever heard of this film was actually through their intro where they pulled a bunch of famous quotes, audio clips from horror movies, and it's "They're coming to get you, Barbara." I'm like, that's so cool, and like I've never heard it, so I googled it. I'm like, that's more reason for me to finally watch this movie when I did a couple years ago for the first time, ahead of its time. The first, correct me if I'm wrong, it's the first horror movie with the lead African American lead. Am I not correct? So
have you seen the animated version?
The animated version?
Yeah, so a few years ago they did a big budget shot for shot animated representation, and it's fantastic. So if you
Awesome.
enjoy this one, I would suggest hunting it out. It's worth the find.
Absolutely. I'm gonna have to do that. And for the time, and I forgot to put years. I'm so bad at remembering years for some movies. This was 55. I don't know off the top of my head. I apologize, but for the time too, the effect with the zombies before zombies really became like the rotting corpses that were walking all around. I thought this was still how they were represented. Really scary. And I talked about criteria and endings. The ending for this movie. We won't go too spoilers. I'll put a light spoiler warning before we go any further. But just because this is just one of those endings that does stick with you. So all that being said, that's where I came and that's how I got to Night of the Living Dead.
1968.
Thank you. Thank you.
Sure. Is it this would probably be the only chance for me to interject the Romero story, if I may?
Sure, please.
So, in a previous life, I was a creative director for a publisher called Terminal Press that was based in New Jersey, and we uh, did a anthology called Zombie Bomb. And at the very early stages of that project, I had a chance to meet Romero at a signing, and just put a little moxie on it and showed up with a copy of the first issue. And the line was super long, and it was pretty like wham bam thank you ma'am sort of thing, right?
Yeah.
And I got up to the line, and George, big fan, could we get an endorsement from you or whatever. And he basically took both the photos, and I'm sorry, took both the comics and like posed and smiled and gave us a tagline and like endorsed the book. And I had like, the entire experience was probably 45 seconds, and it was just like, I remember being at home and hearing that he was signing somewhere in Boston somewhere. I remember just like grabbing two copies of the book, getting in my car and going, and then waiting in line, walking up with the book. So that we have, so we printed in the back of, I think the final issue, we had like a collage of kind of adventures of, from the course of the project. And there's a shot of him like holding the cover and the variant cover for the first
Oh,
book.
nice.
Then he gave us a quote, and it was like it was early on, so it was a huge like seal of approval to have like his endorsement, and he was super nice to us. Now he wouldn't remember. Rest in peace, but we were a blur of faceless horror fans that day. This wasn't a precious interaction. It was just I don't often get to mention the Ramiro story, so
That's awesome.
why not?
Yeah, that is awesome.
Sean, before you go to your 13, any thoughts on A Night of the Living Dead?
Yeah, I mean, let me just say that all of Romero's zombie flicks are all sort of one big conglomerate in my mind. So I haven't seen them enough, like over and over and over, to really pick one particular item out, other than The Godfather of Zombies. So you can't go wrong with any sort of, just, that's such an important flick to the genre. We probably wouldn't have zombies the way that they are. We wouldn't have The Walking Dead. We wouldn't have all these other things if it wasn't for him.
Yeah,
It's a seminal movie. It's a before and after, right? There was the time before this movie and the time after that movie. It's a biggie.
Yeah,
exactly.
Nice pick, Mike.
So,
all right. Yeah, so mine's not as quintessential. But like I said, my criteria, I really go into my horror movies that I really love are the psychological and paranormal. So Get Out to me is sort of, which I think is one of the top recent, like in the last 20 to 30 years, movies out there, with Jordan Peele being that sort of newcomer to the horror sphere. I will say I haven't enjoyed all of his movies, but Get Out definitely, to me, sort of fits that mark of that psychological. Also, a movie I do enjoy, and I know a lot of people don't, so I'll preface that. I do enjoy when movies sort of bring in the issues of the day. So this movie is heavily involved in that race aspect, as well as that psychological aspect. So, yeah, it was my number 13 there. I couldn't move it up because there's a ton of other stuff, but I wanted to give a shout out to a more modern movie, since I'm going to guess that this list is going to be heavy non-modern as well. So yeah, that was my shout out for number 13 to Get Out.
Great pick. I remember seeing that in theaters and just the buzz around that movie, and great cast. I love the line. Bradley Whitford's a joy anytime he's in a movie. So him as the father, just great movie. It was one of those you remember walking out of that movie like, oh wow, that was something.
Yeah, I have to admit to have not seen this one yet. I saw, was it Ox? Was that another Jordan Peele?
Yep.
Yeah,
Yeah, so
yeah.
I saw
That's the one I don't really love. It didn't hit the mark for me.
Agreed.
that one and enjoyed it.
Okay.
But this is the one that I think this is the one I hear most positive things about. I do have a bias towards older horror movies, so um, I don't get super jazzed about a ton of modern films. But this is one on my list. I got to see it. I want to see it. I've heard good things. I'm excited about seeing it.
Awesome. And Adam, how about your 13? Speaking of 13.
So yeah, so kind of like how Sean had mentioned, the Ramiro work is a bit of a blur to him. So I love Freddy and Jason and all the 80s slasher, supernatural, comic book, that sort of stuff. I had a hard time, a little bit of a spoiler. I had a hard time littering them profusely throughout my list because they do tend to stand as creator for some of the parts, right? Like I love Jason and I love Freddy and I love Michael Myers, but like it's a little harder for me to pick out like one or so
Yeah.
I thought Jason's my favorite of these monster slasher 80s icons. I was We used to do a pretty ambitious, epic Halloween party for about a decade. And one year we were the icons of horror, and I was Jason, and so I love Jason. So I couldn't make this list of 13 without putting Friday the 13th at number 13. So we need to have a little symmetry there. And so I chose just my favorite of the Friday franchise. And this one has the campy elements that I really enjoy about the film. I love the first one too, and I like even the really crappy ones that goes to space and Manhattan and all that. But this has the Frankenstein shout out in the beginning, and he comes back to life, reanimated with lightning, and the Tommy angle, and then this is sort of the first one where he basically becomes a superpowered zombie. He goes from this you know mysterious murderer guy, maybe rumor this that to like a really unstoppable force of undead, superpower. So I think this one has all the elements of the Friday franchise that I adore, and I thought it fitting to put a Friday the 13th at number 13.
One of my favorites in the franchise, CJ Graham, too, an awesome Jason. If you ever have a chance to meet him at a convention, he's a treat. I met him at Super Mega Fest years ago in Massachusetts, and my dad was taking the picture. I posed with them, and he goes, "Who's that guy looking at? Want me to beat him up?" So he calls my dad over, and he's like, come take a picture with me. So like he didn't even charge for the picture with my dad, and
Awesome.
we each have a selfie with him. So that's pretty cool. So yeah, I love this pick. That being said, Sean, starts off with your 12th.
Yeah. So like Adam sort of
another franchise that's being represented, Sean.
Yeah. So I found it very hard to choose which one. I nearly just went with the first one just to say, hey, it's the first one, just throw it out there. But I went with the final chapter. No major huge reason other than I really enjoyed this one. Like Adam said, everything Adam said, I think holds true. I'm a huge slasher fan. As you'll see throughout my list, wink, wink, nudge, nudge, that it was really hard to sort of sort through. Friday the 13th. I tend to, on sort of all of the longer franchises, I tend to have just like one large conglomerate mix in my head. It's hard for me sort of, unless I'm seeing them over and over and over in that particular order, to sort of choose one from the other. So this could have been any of them, but I chose the final chapter.
It was between this one and these were the two that I was really back and forth on. So this one almost made it for me, but I chose the other. But they're the best two in my opinion.
Yeah. Yeah. So you can't have horror movies without slashers. And I do think the slasher movies, the sort of quintessential ones, aren't violent just for the sake of being violent. I know we may talk about that at another time, but I'm not a huge violent for the sake of being violent in a horror movie. It's got to have reasoning behind it. I mean, there has to be a reason why Jason would zip someone up in a sleeping bag and whack them against a tree, right? It's not.
And I think even if the reason is to make the audience laugh, then that's reason enough, right? Like,
Yeah.
So like it can be, it's that it can be sort of motiveless violence if the motive is we are going over the top, fun, campy, or
Yeah.
over the top. Like if you like, I'm down for a bloody movie, but give me like a 5 gallon bucket of Taro syrup blood. Like that's the kind of like give me that blood. Do I need to see like a hyper realistic depiction of some poor person bleeding out? Not my bag. But number 5 gallon
Yeah.
bucket of blood on my head, then I'm in.
Yeah. Like I'm not gonna say anything bad if somebody has a movie that has 3 letters in it that begins with S and ends in W. But it's that type of thing that I'm like, I'll watch them, but it's fine. I don't need to see somebody's eyeball getting poked with a syringe. It's just, no, I'd rather see somebody die from an axe.
Agree. I'm not what they call the gore whores, and I don't need the carnage candy for it to be a good horror movie. I love a good slasher if it's justified, if it's warranted. But the gratuitousness of some of them get a little too over the top for me. So definitely understand where you're coming from. Adam, how about your 12th?
Yeah, I mean, to me, this is an essential marker of a time and place, right? This movie really distills this time period in horror movies. Um, it's the look is perfect, right? It's over the top. It's very music video. It's super sexy. It's super specific to like a year and a decade. So great cast, right? It has a lot of fun vampire tropes and a lot of nods to the classics with interjecting a whole new, angle on it. And the Frog Brothers, and we've got the Coreys, right? And we've got tons of comic book goodness in there.
Got Jack
And
Bauer.
yeah, exactly. It's just the layers, right? Like, I mean, it's hard for me to. I mean, you've got to roll with it, right? Like you're gonna want to be here for this experience, but like it's hard for me to like really say an ill word about this movie. It might not be your thing, right? You might not be into this style, whatever, but like it's a pretty rad movie. And just like I said, all the imagery, the way it was marketed, the way it was presented, even now it's like its legacy, like it lives really strong, like in like modern fans. And it's one of my fun super nobody cares about this, but it's a fun like little minutia fact. There's one of the actors in the movie. His name is Billy Worth. He plays one of the. So there's Alex Winter, right, from Bill and Ted's Excellent Adventure. He's a vampire in it, and then you've got Kiefer, of course. He's a vampire in it. Well, the other super dreamy, long-haired, like modelly looking one, his name is Billy Worth, and he was on an episode or 10 of American Gladiators, and I think he won one of the American Gladiator seasons, and basically became like a folk hero in my neighborhood and between my brother and I. Was that like we would watch American Gladiators and cheer on Billy Worth, who looked alarmingly like the vampire in Lost Boys. And so my understanding was is that he was on American Gladiators before this movie. And he was like a model role player, TV guy, and was in Hollywood, and he was super athletic, and he went to the American Gladiators. So for the other people, meaning myself, my brother, and probably the Billy Worth family, They now know that he was not only in Lost Boys, but he was also in American Gladiator. So that's my 2 cents
That's awesome.
on minutia trivia for this movie. But I love his movie.
Um, and then I went with the movie I just watched actually last month for the first time, American Werewolf
So
in
good.
London.
It's so good. It's so good.
Finally checked it off the list, and David Naughton making it in this one. And one of my other criterias is practical effects all day, and the effects, the werewolf costume or the werewolf design is unique, and it separates itself from other werewolf movies. You see that it's very hard to get confused with where it's coming from. You know, it's coming from this one, and even the costume designs on like the Nazi werewolves and stuff. So it's phenomenal. And on top of all the great imagery and practical effects and the costumes, you have a good story in it too. You have a love story in there. You have a story of two friends. So it's this had a lot of all the right makings. For, derivative from a classic Universal monster. Yeah. Another big criteria for me. So there's not much to not like, in my opinion, about this one.
I have guys are gonna I've never seen this.
Okay, that hurts.
So I'm gonna have to add it to the list so I can watch it. Yeah, I feel kind of ashamed by saying that.
Mike, would you feel good about saying it's damn near perfect? Because I would.
It's hard to say it's not.
Regardless of us busting each other about you not seeing it, you got to see it. It's awesome.
Yeah.
It's just awesome.
And now that Sean was the first to make a big confession, I've never seen The Lost Boys, so that's on my list, and that's one.
But so far, right? We all have one. I haven't seen Get Out. You haven't seen Lost Boys, and Sean hasn't seen Werewolves. So we all have homework.
I love it.
Yeah.
Friends helping friends.
I've seen Lost Boys, but it's been a really long time. Right. But I need to definitely check it out again. It wasn't even in my mind of like, hey, that's a movie I can add here. But I'm a huge Kiefer fan, so I need to check that out again.
So let's move on to number 11, and Adam, why don't you lead us off?
Sure. Ooh, okay. Jekyll and Hyde. So I just finished literally 2 or 3 weeks ago. I just finished reading the original book, So, and I loved the book. The book actually was fantastic. So I would say probably maybe closer to 10 years now. It's not quite 10, maybe 5, 6 years ago. A buddy of mine who is a mentor, collaborator, close friend. He is really, really into classic horror films and like an authority on all things horror movie. And I was a late bloomer to the horror genre. Mostly I discovered it through comic projects. And then once I had my eyes open to the world of classic horror movies, I have never looked back, and fell head over heels in love with them in general. So we went through a bunch of the early important black and whites of the day, and the usual suspects were all there. And on that sort of second wave, we watched Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde, and it slayed me. It was the first one. It's not the first one. There's one other that appears later in the list. This one hit me with an emotional tenor. Like it hit me in a way that actually had me uncomfortable and squirming. So I found to be riveted by it. So the Hyde is so genuinely disturbed and evil in the film, and the buttons that he pushes and the levers that he pulls with the other cast members and his victims resonated with me on a level I didn't expect. It kind of triggered some personal stuff in me, and I was like actually really tense and squirmy and like kind of like, oh my God, this is a lot. So where the other ones of this time period, I think, are flavored positively with different spices, different elements. This one is truly, like, for me, I guess, gut wrenching, right? Like there are parts of this film where I was completely wrapped and like gripped and like feeling something visceral inside me while watching it. And then Frederick March, who plays Jekyll or Jekyll, as they say in the movie, um, it's just fantastic. He's dashing and charming, and he's one of those guys. Back then, they would those triple threats. They would sing and dance and act. Right, that was how they were in Hollywood. So there's a scene where he zips around this library and bounces from like bookcase to desktop to floor, avoiding this, that, and the other. And he's gliding across the place like Fred Astaire, and he's like such a leading man. So to have this like dashing, graceful, like charismatic Frederick March leading man against this like vile, reprehensible Hyde, like it's a sleeper from the early Universals for me, and it's an absolute must for anyone who has an appetite for old horror.
That's on my list. I'm a huge fan of the Universal stuff and classic horror pre, 60s. But that's like one of the last few of like those core foundations I haven't watched. So that hearing you talk about that just made me really want to,
Yeah,
finish
and
it.
it may not hit you the way it hit me, but I would put the blinds down, watch it by yourself late at night with no distractions and nobody around, get that popcorn and really like invest in the experience. And I think you'll dig it.
Awesome. I went with Halloween 4. We talked about slashers. We're all big slasher fans. Michael Myers. Jason's my favorite, but Michael's a close second. And in this movie, they had the task of bringing back. There's a whole backstory of this whole franchise coming after the third one, which was intended to turn the franchise into an anthology series. People, powers that be, no, we want Michaels. The fans were not happy from Halloween 3, which didn't feature Michael. So they brought him back. And I thought before this franchise gets really weird, this was like the first 4 in the Halloween franchise out of all the icons, it's tough to beat a first 4 like this. And we get the introduction of Danielle Harris, as the child actress who's grown on to do a lot more things within the genre, out of the genre. We had Donald Pleasance returning from the first 2. And it's classic Michael. Michael's not flashy. He's not a track star, but he's silent, stealthy. He's going to find you. I talked about endings being a criteria. The ending of this film is one of those that just always sticks with me.
This is a less exciting bit of trivia, but do you know the deal with the mask?
Yes. For this movie or in general?
So the original Michael Myers mask was a Captain Kirk mask.
Awesome.
Great.
And
Mike, you brought up the third one. If we were making a list of least favorite horror movies of all time, the third one would be on my list.
Interesting.
I had a actual hard time physically getting through it.
And was it anything to do with the fact that Michael wasn't in it? Did you know that going into it?
No, it was the persistent, annoying, like that the groaning commercial, the thing, all that. Like it was weird. Michael wasn't there. I actually liked the visuals of the trick-or-treaters and the masks, and but it was like they had like a jingle or a chant or a tone or something.
Happy Halloween.
Yeah, and it went right through my
whole
skull.
movie.
Yeah, and the pace of it, and it just kind of went nowhere and got really wacky for me. And like it got to the point at the end where like with no Michael and that stupid song, I remember being like, oh, like this one's not for me. Like people love this is a beloved movie, and I just can't do it.
It's definitely an acquired taste. Not
Yeah,
for
it's a polarizing one for sure, I think.
All right. So my 11, you probably cannot tell what that is.
My bad.
But no, it's all good because I kind of cheated. So my number 11 is 2 movies, but they're the same movie, just one's American, one's Japanese. So
Okay.
it is The Ring or Ringu.
Ringu, yeah.
So same story, two different movies. Again, you're gonna see a pattern with probably half my movies. The psychological paranormal things really get me from a movie standpoint. I really like the aspects of the like young girl with her hair in front of her face climbing out a screen, just everything about it. I think it really sort of set the world on fire at that time as well when it came out. I'm gonna guess this came out in the early 2000s ish,
So that feels
maybe.
right to
I
me.
think 2001, because I remember being confused as a kid going to see Lord of the Rings and The Ring, and thank God I didn't step into this because it took me years before I loved horror. So that's how I always remember that.
Sean, are you familiar enough with both versions to be able
Yeah,
to talk about what the differences are or what you prefer about either? The Ring was 2002, by the way.
I haven't. Oh, thank you for 2002. I've seen The Ring a whole bunch of times. I've only seen Ringu once.
Sure.
So I can't pinpoint the major differences. I wanted to put Ringu in there because the ring was made from that. So
Right.
I wanted
Sure.
to do that. Truth be told, I don't, from a horror standpoint, um not outside of Godzilla. If you think Godzilla is horror, I know some people kind of do on the original ones, but outside of that, the Japanese movies don't really draw me in a lot. It's a particular style of horror that I generally am not drawn to. It's sort of like slowly, methodically laid out. But I do need to, now that we have all these lists and even my own list, I need to rewatch some of the items on it because I haven't seen them in a while. So I do not. If you are, I would love to hear the
No, I'm much the same. I remember the Ring, and I think I've seen Ringu once. But it might be a viewing party. Might be a good thing to watch. It would be probably pretty cool double feature too.
I haven't seen either.
Oh,
Here we go.
they're
Yeah.
they're very good.
Yeah. So, but yeah, so that was my 11. Another modern-ish, probably anything 2000 and above is probably technically modern, I guess, if we want to put a comic book spin on it, I guess it's like
Yeah.
91, but that's a lot of movie.
Yeah, we could. It would probably fit. It would more or less line up.
Yeah.
Yeah. Before we go to number 10, if people are popping into the chat, throw your top 13 in and your thoughts on each movie if you've seen them. Any questions for us as we go along? I know Lost Boys is once again on my list to watch, and definitely one I'm going to be watching sooner rather than later for the first time. And if you have any guesses, which franchise is on each of our lists, there's only one. Throw that in the chat too.
I mean, I've figured it out now, but
So with that being said, I believe I'll bring us into our
10th.
10th.
You. Yep.
And I know this is going to make Adam stoked. I mentioned Universal Monsters. I love monsters, love creatures, the designs. What's better than the Creature from the Black Lagoon? I love horror movies that take place, or a lot of it takes place in, the aquatic setting, and the Creature from the Black Lagoon. It's from the iconic Roar. I'm not gonna try to do my impression of it, but it's one of those
Do it.
you always stick in my my mind. The Roar is iconic, the design's iconic, and it's just a fun horror adventure. There's the kills in that movie for the time. I know that's one of the later of the first original era of the Universal monsters, but it's pretty scary. And I just huge fan. He's my favorite Universal monster, and I had to include him on there.
Yeah,
I'm biting my lips.
I know. I have never. So this is I'm not maybe spoiling my list a little bit. I'm not a huge older horror movie fan. Just not a huge older, like probably like 60s ish movies in general. So I can respect what they've done for the movies that come after them. Just not my particular cup of tea. I have grown from a Universal Monsters perspective. I have grown to appreciate probably Creature more than anybody. Partially because of Adam over here, but yeah, so that's my take on that one. I can't say anything positive.
I have to ask you a painful question that has my ears pre-hurting already. You have this opinion of these movies. Have you seen them?
I have
If you
not
say
seen
no, I swear to God, I'm coming through the screen. If you're telling me you don't like these movies and you haven't seen them, your credibility is like
I
if
have
it is a health
seen
meter. It's just
some of them. I haven't seen all of them
no.
because
All is absurd. Have you seen the 4 or 5 that every human knows who these guys are?
I have not seen them all. No.
Oh my God. Have you seen Dracula?
Yes.
Have you seen Frankenstein?
Yes.
Have you seen Wolfman?
No.
Have you seen Creature?
No.
Have you seen The Mummy?
Yes.
I also caught some soft yeses in there.
You meant The Mummy Returns with The Rock, right?
No, exactly. So this is like you telling me you don't like Indian food and ever haven't ate Indian food. This is killing me.
No, I love Indian food. What are you talking
I
about?
know it's an example, Sean.
Oh.
I'm saying you haven't seen like
Well,
the
next
core
time I'm up
essentials,
there,
and
we're gonna watch Creature from the Black Lagoon.
yes,
Okay. All right.
yes.
There.
Well, that's a start, but there's many more. So before you dismiss an entire something, you should probably see if you actually like it or not.
Fair enough. I'm not
Okay.
dismissing it. I'm just saying, just putting it aside.
You're just saying you don't like it, but you haven't tried it. That's fine.
And there's just so much fun trivia about this movie that there was two monsters. One did the on land scenes, one did the swimming scenes, and just that there's so much. We might be talking about this movie later in the show, but yeah, I had to include him on here. He's my favorite. It hurts a little bit to have him this low, I will say.
That hurts me a little bit too, but I'm glad you made the list.
So going to another movie that's on my always growing list. Sean, you're number 10.
Yeah, so number 10 is 28 Days Later. My opinion is that this reinvigorated, can't talk, it's late. Sort of the zombie flicks were sort of not really going much of anywhere at this time. 28 Days Later, in my thought, really brought them back. In a more of that post-apocalyptic feel of zombies, rather than just zombies are around, the running zombies was a game changer here. That freaked me out when I first saw it. Something you never really saw before. The acting, Cillian Murphy here was amazing as the lead. Just I love that sort of I love movies where it's got that horror feel, but it just centers like he's basically like a one-man show, right? It's him versus the zombies. A lot of it was just about how the post-apocalyptic feel was rather than a zombie flick mainly, sort of like how I equate The Walking Dead. It's not really about the zombies, it's about how the world ended and how people are sort of interacting with each other. Um, this is my favorite zombie movie. So sorry to you guys. I know you're huge George Romero. I am a George Romero fan, but this is my personal favorite zombie movie of all time. The sequel, not so much, but this one was a really good flick that I felt brought the jolt back to zombie flicks.
Yeah, well said, man. Everything you said, dead on, 100%.
Cool. And then Adam, your 10th.
How did I
Tremors.
forget Tremors?
Yeah.
How did I forget Tremors? I love
All
this
right, good.
movie.
We got one you forgot. Yeah. So I heart Tremors. Like
So good.
it's pure joy. Like I've seen it a bunch of times. Anytime I happen to get lucky enough to catch it in the theater when they do that somewhere, I do. The sort of the bromance between the two male leads is epic. The creatures are epic. The comedy's perfect. The the trapped on an island like sort of vibe, right? Where like they can't hit the ground, don't touch the lava. The the characters, I mean,
So
this is really, I think, a perfect comedic horror movie. Great creature, great suspense, great action adventure, tons of great chemistry, tons of great comedy. Again, in my opinion, just a perfect movie, a fun movie. If you don't like this movie, you don't like fun. I don't know what to tell you.
this was this. I don't know many. I don't know how many times as a kid I caught this on like
Sci-fi.
TNT or Sci-Fi or like USA, like 3/4 of the way through, a quarter through, halfway through. Just the pure fun, as you said, like just the stupidness of them just like chucking explosives at the Tremors, just having them explode, and like just and Kevin Bacon. How can't you like
Yeah.
Kevin Bacon? And it's
Okay.
yeah, I really, as you said, this is a movie that is just fun from start to finish. It has each one of the different characters are so different from each other too, where it's like, hey, I have an idea for a plot. How about you bring all these totally different people together, and there's these monsters and they can't touch the floor, and it's like, dude, how much have you been smoking? But let's do it anyway. You know, like who cares? And it's a great movie.
It's a testament to how beloved it is too, because they made like
How many?
7
Yeah.
of them or something, and like obviously, but it's in the spirit of the ridiculousness, right? Like
Oh yeah.
they're not making 7 because they think they're 7 good movies. They're making 7 because they know people will come and laugh and have fun and watch the dad from
Like
Family Ties shoot
Sharknado.
worms. You know what I mean? Like so, it's fine.
Yeah, they're not making multiple Sharknadoes for the sake of making
Right.
Cinema.
It's
good
just,
movies.
hey,
They're
let's
making
do
it
this and have
because
fun. You know what I mean? Yeah,
yeah, because
exactly.
sharks are going in tornadoes and landing on
Yeah.
people's heads. You know, like
Um, and this isn't the only slice of bacon we're gonna have on this list.
ooh,
Nice, nice.
And did I time that perfectly with 9? No, I didn't. But that being said, we are into number 9. And Sean, talk about your number 9.
okay. So, I this was the movie that I thought was the franchise that was going to be on everybody's, but Adam said it earlier. He didn't like, or he didn't put these on his list. I think. Evil Dead. Bruce Campbell is flipping amazing. I love that dude. Evil Dead 2. It's that I think Bruce called it a requel of number 1.
Yeah.
It's like it's not a sequel, but it's not a remake, so it's a requel. I prefer this one over like Army of Darkness, over the other ones where it gets super campy. So I just love all the movies for Evil Dead. Even as I said, Army of Darkness, it's not better than this one, I think, but I still love it. There was a recent show, Ash versus Evil Dead, that got canceled way too early, I thought. Even the new ones, I think are solid, not great, but are solid additions to the franchise as well. I like the supernatural stuff, so this is right up there with possession and just some entity chasing them down. And how can't you like a guy with a chainsaw as an arm? And
it's all and just to clarify, if anybody happened to catch the beginning of this, the movie we watched that Sean referenced was not this movie. The movie we watched was
Correct.
Army of Darkness. So this is a horror movie. We watched Army of Darkness,
which is not a horror movie.
which is not a horror movie, which is why I say I don't consider it quintessential horror. So
fair enough.
Just to clarify that, so if anyone thinks that I don't, this is a horror movie, but the one we watched was Army of Darkness. So Army of Darkness is my personal favorite because I like the comic book elements and I like the humor. But as a horror movie, yes, Evil Dead and Evil Dead 2 are phenomenal.
So me and the Evil Dead, I respect and appreciate those first three movies. I love Sam Raimi and Bruce Campbell, and once again, practical effects. You can't go wrong, and he did a phenomenal job with these. For whatever reason, I just couldn't attach myself to those first three movies. Right. My favorite out of all of them is the Fede Alvarez 2013 remake. I loved how gnarly that was, and we talked about gore. There's a lot of it in there. But I think it's good too. I don't think I've been in the right mindset to watch The Evil Dead.
It's a specific type. It's low budget. It's campy. It's over the top. Like if that's not your bag, you're not going to like these, you know. And if you gravitated towards the remake, that makes sense that you might not love these because the remake was phenomenal, and I thought it added a whole nother. It was its own thing while honoring the source material, you know.
Yep, I agree.
And Adam, you're number 9, this was like, one I haven't seen, I know of, and like that's a cool pick.
I haven't seen this either.
Yeah. This movie just rules, you guys. Like you've got it, like it's awesome. So the lead is the dude that played is it Poe in the Star Wars movies?
Oh, is it
yeah.
Is it John Boyega in this one?
Yeah, and so that's like this was like his break. So this is I think it's a UK movie, an independent horror movie, lower budget. And I won't spoil it because you just got to see it. But it's about this group of friends, right, that are kind of hoodlums in their town. And one night something attacks the block. And so they have to band together and goes from there. I don't really want to say anything else because it's just so much fun. So it's super original, super imaginative, right? So what attacks the block is so clever and so well done, and I love when lower budget films lean into their lower budget and they find a way to outsmart it, right? So for example, Sean, you mentioned Godzilla earlier tonight. -1 had a unbelievably low budget, right? And what it did with that budget is mind blowing. And even Evil Dead, the first Evil Dead, right? A zero budget, like the mariachi, right? These movies that have like a lower budget but don't feel at all low budget. This falls into that category. The chemistry between the characters is phenomenal. If you love coming of age stories, if you love camaraderie stories, if you love originality and horror, there's some heartstrings moments. It's just great. I can't talk about the way I want to because you guys haven't seen it, and I don't want to spoil it for you at all.
I want to see it.
Obviously, it's in my top 10. It's beloved in this household, so I would this would probably be the most out of left field sleeper pick that I could come up with, but that wasn't why I picked it. I just genuinely love the movie.
Awesome. And then for my 9, so many boxes checked. You have practical effects. Going back, we have George A. Romero directing. the Stephen King written script, which was also the comic book, which is an awesome horror comic book. I love anthologies. In my opinion, there's no bad skit in this
Yeah.
movie, and just chilling moments. Like, I like a good scare, and there's this. My thing with horror movies, I try to put myself into them, and the ones where I'm like, what would I do in these situations? I don't know. It's Creepshow does all of that. I love the design of the creep, who's kind of our crypt keeper, throughout the movie, and one of the first, if not, I could be, correct me if I'm wrong, one of the first anthology movies, if not the first in regards to horror. And yeah, that's all I got to say about Creepshow.
I have a Creepshow story if you want it.
Sure.
All right. So the Creepshow, the artist who did the work on the Creepshow comic is an artist named Jack Kamen, who was an icon of the pre-code horror movement and was brought in front of the Senate hearings, being when the Comics Code Authority put the industry under scrutiny. And his career was cut short because he was prolific in the EC comic world. So Stephen King found him, after years of absence from the comic field, and had him do the artwork for the comic book that was attached to the movie. So Jack Kamen's father, Jack Kamen's son, is named Dean Kamen, and Dean Kamen is the inventor of the Segway.
Get out.
That, yeah, and he's also local, and is the local to anyone, meaning New England. Sorry, because maybe someone's not from New England watching this, but he's New England based, and he is like a world-renowned inventor, and is the world's foremost authority on his father's artwork, and he purchases any originals that come up and catalogs it to the highest digital standards known to man because he's super wealthy. So he's like the keeper of his father's work. So I've happened to have crossed paths with him in another walk that I won't bore you with. But it's a interesting connection that there's this like iconic pre-code horror comic. So you can find his work; it's all over EC Comics. But he just kind of disappeared and then resurfaced with the Stephen King project. And then last year or so, I was traveling and ended up in a bookstore in Portugal and found a Portuguese copy of Creepshow.
No
I
way.
was really annoyed about it. So yeah, Creepshow is rad. It's awesome. And you've got, like you said, you got all those elements, all the horror gods coming together to like just not even just the movie, right? But the comic, the movie, the source material, the writing, directing it. So it's yeah, man, it's Creepshow is rad.
And Creepshow 2, I'm a fan of. It's, in my opinion, not as good, but how do you
Yeah, still
top
fun.
the first one?
Yeah.
I don't consider Creepshow 3 canon. And the TV show is fun. I haven't finished that, but Shudder put it out as an original, and that's fun. So any and all Creepshow, I'm all for. And thank you for those. That was awesome. I didn't know any of.
Yeah, my pleasure, man.
All righty. So let's go with the other slice of bacon. Let's see. Sean.
Is it me? Yeah, sure. I'll go. Whatever. So another what I'm considering modern horror movie, probably the sort of larger franchise that is out there right now with Smile 2 just released. But Smile. This I think is just a creepy freaking movie. The premise behind it, and I won't go in depth because it is a more newer movie, especially with the second one that just came out. But follows that path that I love, that paranormal, psychological aspect, and the jump scare elements, which I love. A good jump scare, it gets you into that creepy vibe of like all the lights are off and you're watching it. I love that during this movie and the one that just came out, that they have folks out and about in normal life just advertising for it, where they're just smiling. Like
Yeah.
I think it was during the NLCS or ALCS a few weeks ago, there was a few of them sitting behind home plate, just sitting there smiling.
Yeah.
And in that
Brilliant viral marketing campaign.
yeah. So that sort of plays it in with me, because I love that aspect of it. It's a original type of story and sort of arc as well, in my mind. So again, I love the psychological nature of it. If you've seen it, you probably know what I'm talking about, but I love the that aspect to it, and just some of the sort of jump scares with it. So I did see Smile 2 recently as well, which was almost as good, not as good as the first one, but it prolongs the series and sort of has its own cool aspects as well. But yeah, so Smile is my number 8.
Yeah, I still need to see 2 myself, but I'll just throw in that. Yeah, Kevin Bacon's daughter's the lead in this one. I forgot her first name. And without giving away too much, there's a reveal / design, which is awesome at the end of it.
So I guess Texas Chainsaw. I mean, what else can you say, right?
Yeah.
This is another before and after film, right? So it's everything before this and everything after this. You could make an argument that it's perhaps the most influential horror movie of all time. Um, it's so being a late bloomer to horror, meaning I probably discovered horror intensely in my later 20s, and then it really dove in. So when I saw this for the first time, just it just floored me. I was watching it with adult eyes. I knew it was going to be intense, and I did that. Watch it by myself, empty house, lights out, all in, like the full. And I remember when the movie ended, catching my mouth being open, like, like sort of like realizing that I was actually just agape, like completely sucked in, watching it, going, oh, like, oh my God. And then, when the credits came up, being like, what did I just, it's like the first time you hear a Sabbath record. It's like, whoa, it's like, it's like this and like everything else.
Yeah, he's an icon, Leatherface. This is, you mentioned, before and after this movie, this predates Halloween and Michael Myers and Jason and all those slashers. There's, arguably one of the first slashers. I know there's Peeping Tom, there's Psycho, you can make a case for too, but like still the level of horror. This is a nightmare. This movie is a nightmare, and why it's an honorable mention for me, it's the rewatchability.
Me as
only
well.
Because that dinner, all I'll say is that dinner scene is like, I got to be in a mood if I want to sit through that scene. It's once again, it's practical effects, the costumes, and all. It's truly terrifying. If I'm in that situation, I'm done. So but I love Leatherface, love him as an icon, and just a lot of iconic shots. Especially one of my all-time favorite horror shots is the end of it, where he's just swinging the chainsaw, the sunrise, and just awesome.
Mike, let me ask you a question. Feel free to overrule this. I'm feeling like we're going pretty hard in this list, and we have 8 left. Are you open to a part 2 so we can not fade on this thing? Because we have 8 left, and I feel like we might come back with some rejuvenated energy and be able to really sink our teeth into our top 8. I can make time on my schedule for that if you two can make time on your schedule for that.
That's a good idea.
Yeah, I'm good with that.
Yeah. I'll finish my 8, and then did you guys both want to end here? Do one more, get the 7, or what do you guys think?
It's your call. And also you can tell me to go pound sand. I just thought that maybe I feel like we're cruising, but we still have quite a bit left. And I don't want to finish on fumes. I want to finish like strong, because I feel like we're just getting warmed up here.
Our top ones, yeah.
Yeah. I like that idea. I'll go into mine, and we'll we'll call it, because I always go in the pre-shows, try to keep it an hour, and I know we're now over an hour.
We were creeping over an hour and we're about halfway through our
I
list,
know.
so I thought it might be worth bringing up.
I think it's a sign. I know there's there's the Yankee game on. There's a lot of other things on. So maybe we have some buzz about this going on. We set a date, get more eyes into it, and I'm all for that. I love that.
Yeah,
idea.
sooner than later. This isn't an abort mission. This is, I think,
Yeah.
it'll be better to regroup and really hit the second half of the list pretty hard.
Awesome. I agree. Sean.
All right, cool.
Yep, all good.
Cool. So, Sean, did you want to add anything about TCM before I?
I haven't seen it in a while. It is on my list for this year, actually, to rewatch. So I need to rewatch it. I will caveat: don't consider it a slasher movie, but that's for my future list. I have something else that I need.
You can't say that at the end of this thing. Jeez. Give me an ice cream headache. All right, we can pick that up on episode 2.
I can tell you why, but we can pick that up at the start of
We call that a
episode
big
2,
market tease.
a slasher movie.
Stay tuned next week when we see why Sean is drunk.
Cool. So I'll close it out then. This is the franchise that was on all our lists, and I'm happy you guys went with your picks because my top 3 in the franchise are now all on this. So that was cool. But Friday the 13th, Jason's my favorite slasher of like call it the silver age of horror for relating to the comics, that next wave after the Universal Monsters when you get into the slashers. Jason's my favorite. And why this one is my favorite. I know we don't get the iconic hockey mask till 3. There's something about the sack head I love because it's unique. He's got the overalls, the blue overalls. Blue is also my favorite color, so maybe that has something to do with it. But he just has like the one eye hole, but is still a badass, and some very unique kills. Once again, I don't go in the movies hoping to get oh, that kill's awesome, but like they're unique, different weapons he uses.
You said Kevin Bacon's daughter's in this one?
No, so she's in Smile. She's the lead in Smile.
I didn't realize that was his daughter.
Oh, Mike, I thought when you came in, I thought you were talking. I was like, wow, I was so like, yeah. I was like, I was like trying to do the math on that. I'm like, that's wild.
But speaking of, the female actresses, I think it's Amy Steele. I can't remember her name in the movie, but she's one of my favorite final girls too. That's also one of my criteria, strong final girl. I know it's only the first time we see Jason, but how she's able to outsmart him at the end is pretty cool. And for her to think of that on her feet in that kind of situation. We get the lead in how it pretty much picks up right after the first movie. And then the ending with this as an iconic shot, one of my all-time favorite shots.
Well, that's the sequel. It's awesome, right? It like adds to the lore. It stands alone. It's not a basic rehash. You move on from the kid in the swamp thing. Like it's almost like the beginning of the franchise in some ways.
I agree.
But to your point, not but the hockey mask, right? So it's those first 3 all have their points, and yeah, man, 2 is awesome.
Yeah. I'm trying to think. I think that's pretty much all I have to say about part 2.
We have a question there if we wanted to end on that. Said, what are the feelings of OG versus redo of modern version 70 versus 2000? I know we sort of went on like Evil Dead. I feel like sometimes they do well. Sometimes they're awful, a la like House of Wax with Paris Hilton. I think it really all depends on how close they are to the source material and how well like the current director is trying to be as close to the feel. Right? Like, are they just
Chainsaw had a remake, right? Friday. Yeah. So there was a 2000s Friday. There was a 2000s
Halloween as well. There was
Halloween,
a new Halloween. Yeah.
The Rob Zombie remakes, right?
Yeah.
So
Suspiria.
I really like the first Rob Zombie Halloween. which is not a super popular opinion. A lot of people disagree with
I'm
me,
with
but
you on that one.
yeah, I thought the first one was phenomenal. The
It's
first,
got its
the first,
faults, but
yeah, the three was a train wreck, and two
oh,
was a disappointment. But I thought the first Rob Zombie Halloween was a lot of fun.
I like
I
the
actually thought the Friday was a lot of fun too. I think I saw it in the theaters, and it
that's
was yeah,
that's my fourth
yeah.
favorite. Um,
Yeah, I thought that was cool. That's a big, scary, some good hateable teenagers, some good
yeah,
fun kills. And
I
the
like
Texas
Jason in
Chainsaw Massacre.
Space. I don't
I
know.
haven't seen the
Oh, yeah,
TCM one.
yeah, but that's like part of the franchise though, where like that 2000s one is like an actual
Yeah,
remake, you know.
yeah,
And then
yeah.
the Texas Chainsaw Massacre remake has like an all-star cast, which is wild.
Oh,
If
just
you
the
look at
Biel,
like
right?
yeah, if you like actually look who's in it, it's like how did they get some of
Yeah,
these people in these movies, you know?
it's good.
But yeah, it's they're hit or miss. I think they're to use a pun. I think they're pretty trick or treat, right? Like sometimes it's just what you need, and sometimes it's you're beating a dead horse. And I think uh, we're well, it's been done, right? The remake market is saturated to hell now. But there was a time where there was some fun novelty, nostalgia, callback stuff that was felt genuine and exciting. And now we've just seen it so many times that if you're gonna pull a remake out, I don't
It
know,
needs to
man.
be
You better be there.
spectacular.
Yeah, you better reason for it, you know?
I
Yeah.
haven't seen all those, like, just if we're just talking about like those 70s to then their first remakes in the 2000s. I tend to like more of them than I don't in the small
Mm.
amount I've seen. Like I do like the Friday one, I like the first Halloween one, not the second Rob Zombie. Um, the only one I really don't like is the Nightmare on Elm Street one. With all due
Mm.
respect to that cast and even Jackie Earl Haley, but
Yeah,
that's too much of a swing. You really have to execute and
yeah,
hit it out of the park. And
that's
they
fair.
made it too dark. They focus on something that's hinted
Yeah,
at, never said, and they
yeah,
straight out say it.
yeah.
They drilled down
Freddy's
in the middle.
Freddy is that's that comedy slash horror.
Yeah.
It's like it's supposed to be funny. Like Freddy's supposed to be hilarious.
It's part of our
Whereas like
scary. Yeah.
whereas Freddy vs. Jason is part of canon, right? It's part of the franchise,
Yeah,
but it's far newer, and that one was a blast because they
Love
held
that
yeah,
one.
on to the elements that we all know and love, you know?
yeah, yeah.
I think there's an audience for more Freddy and certainly more Jason. I know Jason fans are dying for more
Oh,
because that property, that intellectual property has been in limbo forever. Um, and every couple years, you get hints of clarity and that they might be sorting it out, and it might be coming to this, and it might be coming to that. But like as a diehard Jason fan, man, do I want some
I
new
mean,
Jason?
we need, and it's always been hinted at, but like, yeah, we had Freddy versus Jason. That was awesome. And then we need a Freddy, Jason, Michael Myers movie.
Yeah.
That's
And
that's
like
what I gotta say.
they've done Predator versus Alien, right? So maybe like a Freddy versus Jason versus Predator versus like like to do it
yeah.
out,
Oh,
like
Freddy
go
and
big, you know?
Jason versus the
Yeah,
alien. Yeah,
yeah, do
yeah,
it.
yeah,
Like
yeah,
let's get
yeah,
that going, you know? But no, that was
Yeah.
it. That was a really good question.
yeah. That was.
Yeah. Thanks, Sean. Thanks for tuning in as always. And if you're just tuning in, um, I think, and I love this idea because it did go longer than I thought, and we're kind of just halfway, if even. So we are going to break this up into two. That was a fun way to kind of go out with that great question. And yeah, I'll stay tuned to the social media. I'll definitely post out, and it'll be spread like this was. So stay tuned. So when part 2 is going to be. But yeah, this was fun. So in
This
closing,
is good.
it's got me, it's just teaser, we're the one doing the teasing, but it's also like I can't wait for the next part. So yeah, once again, Sean, thanks for joining, and any final thoughts before we put the
No,
TV
I've got well, yes, I do. I've got a whole list of movies that I need to see now. So I'm actually going to I'll turn on the baseball game. Hopefully that'll be over soon, and then maybe I'll try to catch one of these tonight. I need to figure out which one is on the shorter side. So
To give you a little more time to
postpone.
pull your honorable mentions list together too.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that's
Yes.
not locked in. Our top 13 is
Yeah,
locked, but
we got a reprieve on that. So now you got an extended
Yeah.
deadline to hook up
Yeah.
some honorable mentions.
And Sean, do you have any if you don't know, Sean sets up at local shows, comics. Sean, you got any shows coming up soon?
Yeah, I think the only one that I have upcoming for this year is the CliffCon show in Bristol, Connecticut. Like November, or I forget, but it's a Sunday before Thanksgiving. It's when he does his larger show. I'll be there with the three men.
That's always a fun time. And then Adam, there's definitely more I want to talk about in part 2. But for people, this is your first time on channel, where can people find you, and what do you got going
Check me
on?
out if you want to see my shenanigans. The best way to find me is on Instagram. It's at Millerstrations. It's a little convoluted. It's MILLERSTRATIONS, like my last name and illustrations. So at Millerstrations on Instagram. You can see pics to the stuff I've been up to, the stuff I make, the adventures I'm on. And I'm pretty communicative on there. And if anybody has any questions or interest in anything I'm working on or doing or whatever, hit me up and I'll always respond.
Awesome. There's something I can't wait to talk about in our part 2.
Yeah, we'll get there.
And then, for closing, signing off, thanks everyone for tuning in as always. Put your comments, if you're watching on the rewind, put your comments, reach out to me what you thought, what you think, throw your top 13s in there. And I'll keep you guys updated. Like Adam said, we want to get that done sooner rather, there will be more in the sooner near future than distant future. And as always, guys, thanks for tuning in. Take it easy.
Bye.
And the awkward end stream. Yes.